once again all things property, due diligence, but we are doing this with Hannah Atiyatse. Please, please, please don't kill me for butchering your surname. Please, maybe you can teach me Atiyase.
You got it. I mean, you got it right. Perfect.
Hannah
Yes, that's it.
Atiase, she is amazing. I'm gonna let her introduce herself because, oh my word, she's got so many accolades. She is a property expert, a CEO. She's a girl boss in general. And I definitely am so honored to have her here, to have the opportunity to talk about South African property as well as Ghana, so that we can actually give you, the property investor, all the information that you need to know before making a decision to purchase property. So, Hannah, welcome and please introduce yourself to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Yolanda. And I will just say I introduced myself as her sister, a long lost sister, right? But thank you
Yes.
so much for this platform. And so I'm Hannah Tiasi. I am CEO and founder of Ewell's Realty and Consultancy, which is a real estate brokerage based here in East Legon in Accra, Ghana, in West Africa. And really, we help people who want to buy, sell, rent, lease properties, whether it's residential, commercial, if it's land. And also, some people own land and they may not have the capacity or the financial strength to develop the land. So we initiate joint ventures, a win-win situation for land developers and landowners. And then we have hotels for sale. So we are in the hospitality space, hotel management agreements, hotels for sale, construction of hotels, etc. We are here to assist individuals who want to purchase real estate, increase their real estate portfolio, and of course, build generational wealth through real estate one house at a time.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I love it. Oh my word. I feel like you're talking about everything I normally talk about, except it's applicable also in Ghana. So I'm very excited for our listeners because we often talk to investors who, come from overseas and they interested in Africa and sometimes they want to do Ghana, but they never know where to go when it comes to due diligence or somebody just helping the buyer specifically. And as soon as I started talking to you, I noticed that, this is what you do. You prioritize buyers, and I love that. And they are going to also love that too. So we are going to talk about property and, just the process of buying property. And what I like to do is I like to contrast it to what we do here in South Africa, and then find out how you do it in Ghana. And most times, the processes are the same or similar, but there's always that slight difference. And that's why people need to make sure that they are dealing with the right people who are helping them. I'll also be talking about the escrow service that you offer and how important that is for buyers to know where to pay their money when they are making a purchase. So, yeah, I think I will start by saying in South Africa, we allow any person, whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen, to purchase property. And when you purchase property, you'll get a title deed, meaning it proves that you are the owner of the property. There is a process, but you'll end up with that title deed. And in some instances, if you are buying in an estate that is, doing things in accordance with the 99-year lease, you might not get a title deed, but you get a leasehold. So you enter into a lease for 99 years. So those are the, ways in which property can be acquired and prove that you either own it or have lease rights over land or property, can be proven in the form of a title deed or a leasehold. And I want to know, for non-residents in Ghana, how does that get controlled? How is it regulated? When they buy property, what do they end up with? Is it a title deed? Is it a leasehold? Yeah, just wanna find out there.
Yeah, great question. And we get asked that question all the time because, of course, foreigners do want to invest in
Mm,
Ghana as well. And so, right now in Ghana, we do not have freehold; we have leasehold. So,
mhm.
if you are a Ghanaian, you will get a 90. You can get up to a 99-year leasehold. If you are a foreigner, it is capped at a 50-year leasehold. right?
Mm.
So, and then it is also renewable. So it's a 50-year leasehold. You
Mm.
will get your deed of assignment. So the property has been assigned over to you, and then you then continue the registration process at Lands Commission. Of course, your lawyer will do all that for you. They will register your vested interest at the Lands Commission. So you have 100% vested interest in that property. However, it is a 50-year lease. The question then is, oh, what if I'm a foreigner married to a Ghanaian? Do I get the 99-year? I'm sorry, you still get the 50-year lease, of
How?
course, unless it is only in the Ghanaian person's name. But if
Mm.
it is a married couple, they will go according to the foreigner's lease term. So it's a 50-year leasehold. And yes, foreigners are welcome to purchase properties in Ghana.
Okay, that's amazing. You know what? I have a lot of questions that I follow up from that, but maybe let me start one by one. So you mentioned that if you're a natural person, you will get 50 years if you're non-resident. What if you start a company? Does it depend on whether or not the company is registered in Ghana, or if it's an American company, then obviously it's a foreign company, it would be subject to 50 years. How does that work if you have a structure? How long is the period?
Oh, that's a great question, but I think they will go according to the nationality of the directors.
Okay,
So
okay.
even if the business is registered in Ghana, but and typically you would need a local content, or you have to have a minimum, capital requirement. However, they will go with the nationality of the stakeholders.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. And then my other question regarding that is, what happens after the 50 years? So in South Africa, it's generally 99 years for everyone, like I said, whether you're a non-resident or a resident. And what happens in South Africa is after the 99 years, you obviously have an option to extend. I mean,
Yep.
it could have been land that you purchased and then you built a house on it. So it won't make sense to say, okay, after 99 years, they chase out your children because maybe you are gone by that time. They get the opportunity to renew. And something that we normally just prepare clients is that when you renew or when you extend the lease, then there's a 3.5% payable, and it's charged on the value of the property at that time. So I just want to gauge, how does it work in Ghana when it
Yeah.
comes to the extension?
Great question. So in Ghana, yes, they have the option to renew as well.
Okay. Okay.
However, what our lawyers would advise is that the clause would be in the actual indenture, stating
Mhm.
automatic renewal after the lease, expires at 50 years. There's automatic renewal at a reasonable cost. So we
Yeah.
don't have like the percentage like you have in South Africa, 3.5%. It will just be a reasonable cost, because at 3.5% in
Yeah.
50 years, it could be quite a hefty sum. So at that time, there would be mediation between the parties and the courts to determine what is reasonable for both parties.
You see, on that point, it's Ghana 1, South Africa 0, because that is the main reason why I don't like 99-year leases. Because I say the same thing to my clients. You really think like me. I say, in 99 years, your property that you purchased for 50 million, if it's worth 80 million or 100 million, do you know how much 3.5% of 100 million is?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make financial sense because it's a clause that's already in there. So kudos to Ghana for not charging investors an additional percentage. That is amazing. That's a good thing, which we definitely don't have. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are pros and cons to both countries, I
Yeah.
can see. And then I also want to talk about the process of property transfer in South Africa. It can take up to 3 months to get ownership transferred in your name, or to get a lease registered in terms of leasehold rights. It can take longer if there are issues, but sometimes it can be shorter than 3 months. But generally, you must know that you need patience for the next 3 months from the date of signing the offer to purchase. And also, there are a lot of other things that you need to be prepared for, which we're going to unpack now. I want to know, how does that process look like in Ghana? Because also, one thing to add, in South Africa, and I learned learned something very interesting about Kenya. In South Africa, you cannot, as a non-lawyer, transfer property for yourself. You and the seller are not allowed to do it. Only an attorney, and even a normal attorney is not allowed to do it. It's a property attorney, meaning it's an attorney that has written the bar exams to, specialize in property, that can appear at the deeds office and do the process, which is why I think South Africa is the most powerful property registration system, where ownership is always almost guaranteed because of how stringent it is. I know, however, in Kenya, parties can just even draft their own contract, which I was horrified by, because I was like, how will they think about latent defects and everything else? And then it made me realize why, my friends, my attorney friends in Kenya, are always busy in court litigating because of property disputes. So in South Africa, you cannot do it yourself. It's an expert that does it, and it's always advisable for the buyer to have a lawyer. It's not a must. You don't have to do it. But if you don't do it, you can run the risk of not having the proper due diligence that would protect you, of course, because realtors are not there to be your estate planner. A lawyer can help you do that in the transaction. So I guess what I want to know is, how does it work in Ghana when it comes to the property transfer process, and who can do it? Who's allowed to do it? And what is your recommendation?
Yeah, so I think this is where South Africa moves from 0 to 1, and we are tied now because, you know, um, unfortunately, here people do draft their own, tenancy agreements, sales and purchase agreements. But in our company, we do not recommend,
Mm,
because I believe that everybody should be in their own area of specialization. We
yeah,
are real estate brokers.
yeah.
We help with market insights, negotiations, property recommendations, etc. Then
Okay.
we pass it along to the legal entities, the lawyers that will draft the sales and purchase agreement to make sure that your interest is protected.
Yeah.
So we highly recommend to go through our escrow services, where our lawyers will do the due diligence, will draft all legal documentation and register it for you. It is not a law that it has to be done by a legal entity in Ghana. However, with our company, Ewells Realty, we do not draft the sales and purchase agreement as real estate brokers in-house. We don't do it. It is a legal entity that we recommend to do that for you.
I love that. I really do love how forward thinking your company is. And that is why I'm even more excited to work with you guys, because that leaves no room for error in a transaction. So, okay, that's very good to know. So when it comes to the transfer process, how long does it typically take from the time the parties have signed the contract, and then you take it over, obviously, to your attorneys who have drafted the contract and facilitated the signing? How long does it take to get the ownership, or rather the lease, registered, so that the investor can end up with those leasehold rights?
Yeah. So, you mentioned that in South Africa, you need patience. Well, Ghana, you need extra, extra, extra patience, because it could be a 12-month process or more. Yes, it does. It does take a while to get the registration done, you know.
Okay,
But,
okay.
they are looking at some improvements in that area with digitalization and that sort of thing. But there is a backlog, and a lot of things were done manually. But now they are moving towards improvisation of those processes. But you will need some patience here.
Okay, that's very important to know, which brings me to my next question. You mentioned a very important thing that you guys specialize in. You offer escrow services, and I want people to understand what that is, because in South Africa, we have the equivalent of that. I mean, we even have banks that offer that service, but banks are not attorney firms and or real estate brokers. So you might find that the service is being offered by a department that doesn't even have anything to do with property. I like that you specialize in property and you have that service, and people need to know why it's important to never ever just wire funds to just anyone when you are purchasing property in a foreign country or anywhere for that matter. So in South Africa, you can send the money into an attorney's trust account, and it's important to understand the difference between the sellers transferring attorneys who also can have a trust account that you can pay into, but also you have the discretion, obviously depending on what your risk appetite is. If you are more leaning towards the side of protecting your assets because you don't know these people, some lawyers do crazy things and run away with money. Maybe they even struck off the roll and you don't even know that, and you pay money over. So due diligence is important in all respects, and also like getting people referred to you so that you can have the confidence that I'm dealing with the right people, I'm dealing with the right attorneys or the right realtors. So what we have and how we've assisted our buyer clients in our firm is that we have a trust account, attorney's trust account. That is where clients' funds are kept, and they don't belong to the firm or anything. They are separate and they await the process. So property transfer, like I said, can take 3 months. For the 3 months that you are waiting to receive ownership or the lease over the property, you have your funds invested in a trust account or kept safely in a trust account. And then only when all the rights have been transferred diligently, then can the attorneys pay over the money to the seller, which provides safety. And you have something similar that also provides buyer safety. So I would love for you to talk about, that escrow service, and yeah, so that buyers can know they have the option, and they must actually get information first before just wiring funds, because there's also compliance, in terms of the foreign exchange regulations, which I'm sure every country has, where documentation needs to be in place. So yeah, tell us more about that service and how it protects the buyer.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the exact same thing that you've outlined here. It is a separate account. Some people call it a custodian account, a third party account, a trust account, an escrow account. It's just different terminology. It's the same thing. It is a separate account to the lawyer's operating account. Okay. So that means that their account where they have their operating expenses cannot commingle with a client's account. So it's a separate
Mhm.
account designated for clients' funds. So we have it for two reasons. Number one, for purchases, whether you want to buy a property that is, an existing property, land, that sort of thing, commercial, residential. Funds are kept there in this escrow account. The lawyer does all the necessary due diligence. They check for validity of ownership, any pending litigations, the zoning, whether it's zoned commercial or residential, they check back taxes, ground rent, that sort of thing, so that you're not inheriting any bad debt. Because once you inherit it, you're going to find it difficult to explain that you don't owe the taxes from 2003, right? So we want to make sure that all those things are settled. So that is where the funds are. And after the due diligence is done, then funds are dispersed to the seller. In the meantime, the seller is assured of proof of funds, that the funds are there, but due diligence needs to be completed first. So that's one reason for the escrow account. There is another reason for the escrow account, and that is for what we call a new construction. The property has not yet been built, and it may take a year, 2, 3 years to build that property. That is what we call an off-plan project. A developer is about to build, let's say, 50 units, 50 apartments. Is going to take 2 to 3 years to build. You don't want to send all the funds to the developer right away. You want to be able to disperse it according to certain milestones. That's what we call the escrow for a new build. Now, if you want to build your home, let's say you are in South Africa, right, Yolanda, and you found land in Ghana, we helped you find land, you have your home designs and you want to build. Now, That's where the funds will also go in the escrow, and it will be dispersed according to certain milestones. In this particular case, for your own home, we have what we call a home inspector that we work with. So the
Mhm.
inspector, funds will be dispersed, foundation will be completed, the inspector will go there, evaluate it, give construction updates. Once we get the green light from him, signed from you, the next phase is dispersed. Gets to window level. The inspector goes out there, inspects it again. We get the okay from you and the inspector. The next phase is dispersed. Roofing level. Inspector goes out there, inspects it again, and then the final phase for the interior. So we work hand in hand with third party stakeholders to ensure not only do you receive a completed home, but a quality build as well.
Mhm.
And everything is taken care of. So those are the two reasons we have for escrow: for a purchase of an existing property and for the purchase of a property under construction.
That is amazing. Now that gives the ultimate protection for buyers. And I think it does not leave any room for people to be making YouTube videos about how they got scammed in Ghana
Yeah.
or in South Africa. And I love it. And I think also people need to remember that, ignorance of the law or the processes is not an excuse. So they need to take the time to learn. And I'm excited that you are going to be presenting your first time home buyers event. So on the
Yes.
13th, I believe, of December. So
Yes.
people get to come and listen and learn from you. So anyone that's
Yeah.
watching this, we're going to be putting it out. Make sure you go to Hannah's page and sign up to attend her event if you are interested in buying in Ghana. That is so
Thank
exciting.
you.
There's so much that I want to cover, but I'm going to be mindful of time and just, talk about certain, other important things that I believe, our listeners would want to know. So when it comes to defects, property defects, you mentioned something important about inspections. So in South Africa, how it works is generally when you are buying property, the seller, or rather the representatives of the seller, will give you the contract. It normally has what we call the footstoots clause, which means if you don't take the necessary steps to conduct due diligence as a buyer, you buy it as is, even if there could be a hidden defect or something. I know in Kenya they don't have what we in South Africa call the disclosure form. So in South Africa, the seller is then required to disclose if there are any defects, in the property that may be hidden, that if a reasonable person were to go and view the property, they wouldn't see those, defects in the property. So that's why they require the seller to disclose. But not everyone is honest. Not everyone is going to say, "Oh, there's a big crack on the wall behind the cupboard or whatever." So then that responsibility becomes, you have to, as the buyer, make sure you get an inspection. Which made me so happy that you have that in Ghana. But for us, when we are dealing with off-plan properties, there's not necessarily inspections per se, because the developer deals with the people that are doing, there is inspection, but it's on the ground, and the buyer's typically not involved, or the buyer's attorneys. However, there's the snags, we call it, where once the property is built, you have an opportunity. You can even decide if you want it inspected. But if it's new, people hardly ever do that because they rely on the inspection conducted by the developer. So what they would be given a chance to do is the contract will say, within 30 days of receiving occupation of the property, you need to make sure that you look around and you identify all the things that might be wrong in the property. And if you don't do it within the period, you miss out. Of course, we can regulate the wording of the contract, but generally that's what it says. And so the buyer knows they have to do what they need to do to identify any problems. But if you are buying an older house that has been in existence and there could be cracks that have, occurred over time, or there could be a leak, then that's where the footstoots clause is going to be a huge disadvantage. And that's where you need to conduct, or rather have protection in the offer to say you want an inspection done. And we handle the wording for buyers in respect of that. So I guess what I want to know is there a difference in terms of how potential defects are handled when it comes to properties in Ghana that are off plan versus that are, in that have been in existence already, that are older? Or can the buyer also appoint a company that can inspect an old property that has been in existence for 20 years just to see? I mean, you don't
Yep.
expect it to be new, but there could be things you need to be aware of so that you can negotiate properly regarding who's going to deal with what before it gets transferred to your name.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I want to touch on a few things before I respond to that.
Mhm.
Yes, the first time home buyers in Ghana seminar is happening this Saturday in 3 days' time. The website is fthbghana.com, just the acronym for first time home buyers, ghana.com. Now, you mentioned that, there's certain things you should follow to avoid scams. You hear about scams here and then. When I interview people, especially those who come to my office and they tell me how they've been scammed, etc., you'll find that 99% of them did not follow the home buying process. There is a home buying process in Ghana. There is a home buying process in South Africa. It amazes me how people come, they like a property, they're ready to meet the so-called seller and just exchange
Yeah.
funds for that property. The same processes you have overseas is the same processes you have here in Africa. Might be a little tweaks, but there is a
Mhm.
process. And so that is why I host this seminar every year to teach people about the home buying
Mhm.
process, because when you are informed, you make informed decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you talked about defects. Now, it is there right now with our company, we encourage our buyers to use three key players: the
Mhm.
lawyer for the due diligence, what we call a valuer, an appraiser, to ensure that you are getting value for your money according
Mhm.
to market insights and property data. And then finally, the inspector. We encourage every buyer, it doesn't matter whether it's a new build, whether it's an old construction, whether the home has been there 5 years or 50 years. We encourage all our buyers to use an inspector. If they decline the service, they will
Mhm.
then sign a waiver. All right. So you can sign a waiver for inspection. You can also sign a waiver for escrow services. You
Mhm.
waive your rights for a lawyer to do due diligence on the property. You
Mhm.
waive your rights for an inspection to be done on the properties. That way, if anything happens, it becomes your fault and it's not a scam that
Yeah.
was initiated. So they do have the right to sign these waivers as well. So we offer it. I believe we're the only real estate company in Ghana that are offering it right now. But we are trying as much as possible to
Mhm.
educate our clients, to protect our clients, but ultimately they have to make the final decision.
Decision.
And
Yeah.
so it is, buyer beware. It is
Yeah.
buyer beware. So yes, that's what will happen here. The
I
signing
love
of the
that.
waivers.
I love that. That's exactly how we also do it because you do have some buyers who, they say to you they want to do it the right way, but then they get excited. They get to Cape Town, they see the views, and all of a sudden they, you know what, Yolanda, even if I lose some money, 2 million is not a lot. Now they waive their rights.
Hmm.
And of
Yep.
course, you can't force people
Yep.
who are, in that mode. They are excited. It's their money. And I think, for those people, you really can't do anything.
Yep.
It's not a forced service. It's something that you have the entitlement or the discretion to choose to do. So I really love that. You
Yep.
also have experienced the same. Um,
Yes.
yeah, that's really cool that you also
Yeah.
protect yourself with the waivers. And I'm
Yes.
gonna actually start doing that too because
Yes.
we do that in the consultation because we
Mhm.
record our consultations. We make sure that client knows what they are entitled to, and then we ask them, "Do you want this?" And then if they say no, so we have the recording. But I think also getting something in writing where they waive their right, they know and understand this is what they can do. They can do.
Right.
They waive even with the valuation. And also the inspection. I've had some clients who say, "Oh no, the property is nice, even if they say there's something wrong. I don't want a piece of the seller." And that's also fine because I also
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want a piece of the seller. I want what you want, but I want to make sure that you know.
You get
And
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
So
I
I
agree
really
with
love
you.
that. Yeah.
And what I find is that people don't want to pay. They don't want to pay
Yeah.
for escrow services. They don't want to pay for a valuer. They don't want to pay for a real estate broker. They don't want to pay for professionals. You
Yeah.
see, and I say it is always better to pay that small initial upfront
Mm.
fee than to pay years in court with litigation,
Millions.
with legal
Millions.
fees, and with
Mm-hmm.
your time, energy, and effort in that courtroom. So it is better to pay the upfront fee, do it right,
Yeah.
and get the value for your money and have peace of mind.
I love that. Oh my word. I can recommend any realtor who speaks like that any day. And
Thank
I
you.
must tell you, I there's not a lot of people like you,
Thank
really,
you.
honestly.
Thank you.
So I really love that. Everything that you say just says a lot about your character as a professional
Thank
and
you.
as a person. And also because you mentioned people not wanting to pay, definitely true. But yeah, the cost of not doing certain things is always far greater. And
Yes.
speaking of costs, I want to talk about how much money you can end up parting ways with when you are buying property. So you know that you need to prepare. So in South Africa, there's acquisition tax. When you buy property, you will pay tax to acquire the property. It can be in the form of VAT or transfer duty, whatever, but you will pay to the taxman because you are getting property transferred in your name or in your company. And then there's also transfer fees. And the seller, fun fact, is the one that's entitled, or they have the discretion to choose the attorney who's going to transfer ownership. But you will pay the transfer fees to that attorney, and then you'll also pay tax. And then if you are tapping into financing, which we have, and we do help our clients get pre-qualified before they even commit to anything, just to see how much you qualify for. If you get financing, you can get up to 50% from our major banks as a non-resident, but you will definitely pay bond registration fees. So there are fees related to, obtaining property. I want to find out in Ghana, how does it work? Obviously, the buyer has to pay money to get this amazing investment that they are, taking the time to acquire. But is there tax? Is there, transfer fees, or, how does the process look like?
Absolutely. So what happens is that the lawyer initially, when you engage the lawyer, there is the lawyer's scope of work, which is outlined in the
Mhm.
engagement letter.
Mm.
And then the lawyer also gives you a fee sheet, which outlines all the fees involved. So that because the fees, they have a fee scale according to the lawyer's bar. They have some sort of scale of fees that they charge as a lawyer. And
Mhm.
so the fee sheet, the scope of work, the engagement letter, everything is sent to you up front from the very beginning so that you know what the cost would be. It typically, it depends on the scope of work, whether you want them to be involved in the pre purchase, which is the due diligence, all the way to the post purchase, which is the registration process. So, yes, there are fees involved in all of that.
Mhm.
And it depends on the scale of the scope of work. Then you
Okay.
also have taxes. Taxes vary depending on the location of the property. They could be anywhere from 0.5 to 3% of the market value of the property, depending on the location. So, yes, there are all these fees that are associated. We call them closing costs. So, the lawyer will give you a final settlement statement that outlines all the fees to be paid in relation to the purchase of that property. So, those are the costs that will be involved.
Okay, once again, Ghana one when it comes to tax and South Africa zero, because we definitely do not have, I mean, yeah, we do have zero if the property value is under a certain amount. I think it's 1,200,000.
Okay.
But then it starts from 3% upwards. And
Oh,
I
wow.
like, it's interesting that the amount of tax you pay is determined by the area of the property. With us, the amount you pay is determined by how much the property is. So if you are buying property that's 10 million, you're gonna pay tax like a millionaire. If you are buying property
Wow.
that's less, you pay less. Yeah, so that's how it works here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But typically, even with location, they are prime locations, they are emerging markets. So even if, for example, you want to buy a property in the most sought out location in Ghana, which is airport residential, properties there are going to be expensive. They're going to
Mhm.
be, in the $1 million range even. So then, yes, those taxes would be 3%. So even though it's location, typically the location, what the price
Yeah.
points are in those various locations. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it varies.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. And then the other things I want us to cover is the structure. And I'm sure you will be connecting me to the attorneys that you work with. And I'm excited to talk more about the, other things that I want to discuss, such as immigration, because, the clients that we help, they don't only just want to buy property, they want to know how do I live in Ghana, or they
Yes.
want to register a company. So that's where I want to get into the structure, making sure that I have this property, but it's not in my name. Or if it's in my name, do I have the option to transfer later? And so, yeah, I want to just find out, is it common for your investors to want that assistance in terms of the structure, or do they just typically just want to buy it in their name from the get-go?
Okay. So your question is if they want to typically buy the property in their name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Typically, oh yes. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yes. People typically want to purchase the property in their name. In terms of the immigration laws, I can definitely introduce you to our lawyers that can talk more in depth in terms of
Yeah.
immigration. But what I do find is yes, when people are
Mm-hmm.
purchasing properties, they want to be able to purchase it in their name. And they are able to do that without having fully relocated to Ghana. You have some people who have never been to Ghana before,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're just looking for returns. It's just
Yeah.
like I look at it as investing in the stock market. You don't visit every company,
Yeah.
who is
Yeah. Yeah.
listed on there, but the numbers work, the returns are there. And so that's why you invest. And it's the same thing with real estate in Ghana. You have people who may just do virtual tours, or they may have a representative here in Ghana look on their behalf. But typically, we have people who've never even been to the continent and are investing in Ghana. So yes, they don't have to literally live here to be able
Mhm.
to purchase. And then it's also purchased in their name. Documents are DHL'd or FedEx to them. They sign it. They send their ID identification information, and then it's done that way. And they may have a witness or a notary there that verifies who they are, etc. And the documents are sent here.
Awesome. Okay. And then I'm gonna get into my last question. So in South Africa, we have freestanding properties, and then we have what we call sectional titles. And what we find is that sometimes people can end up deciding to buy a certain type of property based on the information they find out about that type of structure. And I'll give an example. So when you are buying freehold, of course, you have a bit more freedom because the property is not in an estate or in a structure where you co-own with other people the common property. It's a standalone, so you make your rules and you pay the rates to the municipality. Whereas if it's a sectional title, it's like a condo. So there's a block of
Mm.
land, and now there are sectional title rules that regulate how all the owners must, deal with, their property, how they're sharing the space, and also paying this levy because
Yeah.
they need to clean the garden and all those things. And then there's body corporate rules, we call them. So the rules regulate how each person must conduct themselves,
Yeah.
and there's management rules. Do you have something similar in Ghana? And yeah, I just want to know
Yes.
the
Absolutely, we do. So when it comes to apartment buildings, condos, the shared space
Mhm,
we call them, yes, they are subleases
mhm,
for each, individual. And then also we have what we call service charges. There is
mhm,
a monthly fee that you pay for the maintenance of communal areas, lawn care, painting of the exterior, building, a gym, pool, a wellness center,
Yeah.
generator, just maintenance of all the common areas. If there's a restaurant there or a shop, that sort of thing
Mm.
within the community. Security, 24-hour security,
Yeah.
CCTV cameras, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yes, there is service charges for the maintenance of communal areas. And then there is what we call the homeowners association, which
Mm.
yes, there is a group for the homeowners association, and their rules and regulations. Like maybe you cannot have dogs that are bigger than this
Mm.
size in the
Yeah.
community. You have to make sure that the trash is taken out. You cannot leave your yard
Yeah.
unattended, and that sort of thing, to make sure that the community
Yeah.
is in a very pleasant state. So yes, we do have all the above. But I do think that Ghana has kind of edged South Africa a bit in terms of scorekeeping here.
I love it. I'm here for it. Look, but everything you said, it definitely rings a bell. Like we have that, you can't hang your laundry
Yes,
on the balcony. You have to
yes,
keep the aesthetics of the place, respect
yes.
that, what you do with your property can affect the value of other people's properties. And if you don't listen to the rules, you can get fined. And if you get too many fines and you don't pay them, you can actually lose your property in South Africa. The body corporate can take you
Wow.
to court, yes, because they charge levies. So there are normal levies, and then you also need to make sure that when somebody's selling your property, there's no special levies. Maybe they were racking up a bill in terms of fines, and they need to make the bill needs to be cleared. However, that's where the property lawyer comes. We have some drama and horror stories where maybe the seller didn't disclose that they have a debt, and the body corporate maybe forgot to, or I don't know, whatever happened, but they don't bring it to your attention that there is this special levy that this person didn't pay. If you become the owner and that is still not paid, it becomes your debt. So that's part of the
Wow.
it's part of the due diligence that needs to be conducted, where you make them have some warranties written down to ensure that you don't deal with that drama when it comes to levies and everything. But yeah, it's quite interesting, and that's why I love property. It's never boring because there's so much
Yes,
that
it's
can
a
happen.
lot.
Yeah, you navigate a lot of things. And so I'm excited about our future collaborations and working together. I also cannot wait to meet you when I'm in Ghana next month.
Yes,
And I'm excited that you're going to be one of the speakers at the Generational Wealth in Africa, conference, online conference. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think people are going to learn so much from you. And you must
thank
also tell
you.
them about your book that you've written, because yeah, there's a lot of value that you give, and everyone needs to
Thank
know
you.
about. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I'm so excited for the 18th. I'm definitely looking forward to meeting you online, and the audience as well. And I'm just so passionate about educating people about real estate in Ghana and the continent of
Yeah.
Africa as a whole. I want to see more millionaires coming out of real estate in the continent. Andrew Carnegie said, based on the United States, that in the last 2 decades, millionaires have come out of real estate because of their real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
90% is the figure. 90% of
Sure.
millionaires started with a real estate portfolio. Let's change the narrative together, Yolanda, and let's
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
90% plus
Yeah.
millionaires coming out of South Africa, Ghana,
Yeah.
the entire African continent because of real estate. Let's
Yeah.
have the regulation in the real estate market.
Mhm.
Let's change the narrative, and let's empower our youth through real estate.
Yes, I love it. That is giving generational wealth builders
Yes,
Africa energy, and I'm here for it. I'm so excited.
I'm
So
right here
thank you
with
so,
you.
so much, Hannah. Have a pleasant day further, and we will definitely be speaking again.
Yes.
Yeah, be blessed.
Thank you. Stay blessed. Thank you. Bye
Right.
bye.
Bye.